So today we're going to start talking about object-oriented programming, and that's actually pretty exciting because we're getting away from all this basic stuff. I'm talking about these basic data types, so integers or strings, doubles. For instance, we would have int some number, and we had a string that was some name. Just simple stuff like that, just one single item that just did one thing. Now, classes are interesting. This is where we start to get abstract. This is where we can kind of build whatever we want in programming. So, in my mind, this is where things actually get cool. And with classes, you can build, characters in a game. You can build you can have a class that is countries of the world, and in that country you have the population, you have the language that most people speak, you have the capital, stuff like that. So classes really allow us to make complex data types. So again, this is where things get cool, and this is where we start talking about object-oriented programming. So in our last video, we talked about how the header file is where we kind of define everything. This is where we put our, this is where we declare everything. This is where we put our forward declarations. So we're going to define our bank account class here. And then in our bank account.cpp file, this is where we'll define all our functions for our declaration here. And then in our main file, that's where we will start interacting with our code. So to define a class, you just write the word class, weirdly enough, and then you just give it a name. So again, in programming there's always traditions. Whenever you have a class, it's traditional to start it with a capital letter. So we'll just name this one bank account. And so CodeBlocks automatically puts in the semicolon. Just make sure when you're defining a class that you always put the semicolon at the end, or you might get some weird errors when you finally compile stuff at the end. But our bank account is going to have some variables in it, and variables, they can either be private or public. And what that means is that are they accessible from the outside? So sometimes, you want to have a bank account and not have people know how much money is in your account, right? Or that your account is yours at all, or your account number. This is stuff that you would want to keep from the outside world. So, you might put your name in here. So you'll have a std string, and we'll just say like customer name. We don't want someone to be able to access this from outside the program. So to give you an example, let's let us have two things. We'll have private, the customer name, and bank account. We'll have another string. We'll say what the bank name is. So let me just include really quickly my Alright, so let us create a bank account class member here. And so we would just say bank account, and we'll just name this test. So we want to say tests bank name is equal to, let's say, Chase. That's my bank. So we can, name the bank name, and we can also get out what the bank name is. So let's just say it out loud. Let's say test bank name. So what we've done here is we've instantiated, so that's this word where we've created an instance of the bank account class. So that's instantiate, one more time. Created an instance of the bank account class. And then we said we want to take test's bank name, make it equal to Chase, and then we just want to say it out loud. Okay, so just want to say it back to the user. So just to show you what that'll look like, it would look kind of boring. it'll just say it out onto the to the terminal. But now let us try to do that with the private value. Let's try to do that with the private variable here, customer name. See what happens. So we'll go test.customer name. Oh, and I don't know if you saw that. See how it's red? So CodeBlocks is already trying to give us a warning here saying that we can't do this. Before, I think this might have been green. Yep, green. So since it's public, it's going to allow it. And I'm just going to tell you ahead of time, it won't allow us to access this variable. Now we can't name it, and we can't retrieve it either. So we can't get it or set it. So when I try to build and run it, I'm sure we'll get an error here. Let's go ahead and, yep, so there, right here, it says customer name is a private member. Again, private. So that means it can't be accessed on the outside, but it can be accessed from the inside. So, we could write a public member function called, let's call it a string, and we'll just call it get customer name. And so all this does is it will just say this name out loud. And the reason why we would do this is, again, to just keep this information private. When we make our own function that interacts with the private data, we control what is said. Now, this get customer name here, it is going to be able to access anything that is private. So if it is a function inside the bank account class, it can access anything that is private. So let's go ahead and just define that as is. We're going to just define this specific function. And we're going to do that here in our bank account.cpp file. So whenever we are defining it, we need to always, again, put the data type that it's going to return. So this still returns a string, but we need to say that it is for the bank account class. And then you'll put a little colon in between these. So it's going to return a string. It is of the bank account class, and then again the name of the function is get customer name. So what we'll do here is we'll just return the customer name. Cool. So now if we wanted to get our test, if we wanted to get the name from test, we have to be able to name it first, which we can't. We'll do that next. We would just basically write test get customer name. And so what this would do once we name it is it would say the name of this user. So we'll get to naming our customer here in a minute. Let's just flesh out our class first. Let's get everything settled that we want. So we're going to have a few private member variables. We're going to have the customer name. We're just going to give them some ID. So let's just say int customer ID, and then they're going to have a balance. So this is going to just be the money that's in their account. This is going to be just kind of like an internal ID, so only the bank would really care about this. Or maybe when you went to like get new checks or something for the bank, you would say like, this is my bank account ID, something like that, and then username. And so we will have our public member variables as well as the public member functions. So we want to have a function to get the username. We'll also have a function to get the user ID, customer ID, and then we'll have a function that gets the balance. Let's go ahead and do that. Get balance. And then we want to have two functions, one for withdrawing money, so we want to pull money out, and we need a function for depositing money. putting money in. And so we needed to tell it to take a certain amount of money, so we'll write double. So we're withdrawing, like $100, or we're depositing $100. So this is us kind of setting up our class. And when we create a class, when we instantiate a member of a class, we want to be able to pass these certain variables to it when we set it up. So we don't want to, create a bank account and then have to do this sort of thing where we say, test.name is, your name, test.id is yada yada. Basically, we just want to write bank account, test, and pass the variables that we want. So we just want to be able to put, Zach, and the ID would be, 123, and I have $1,000 and $1,004.45 in my bank account at the moment. So we want to be able to do this, and it just set up instantiate a new member of this bank account class. So to do that, we are going to need to use what are called constructors, and constructors are super easy. All it is just defining how you want to set up a new member of this class. So to define a constructor, we would just put bank account again, and we basically just make a little function here for it. So this bank account function, so the class is bank account, and then usually at the top you'll see the first public function here is bank account again, and it is going to take in a string, so std string, and it's going to be, we'll just say name, and then we'll have an int for ID, and then we'll have double bow. Okay, and then in here we'll just say customer name is equal to name, customer ID is equal to ID, and then balance is equal to bow. And I know that when I am typing these out, you see probably here in code blocks it's giving us this red again. Know that code blocks doesn't know everything. So I promise you this will work. We will be able to assign this, only though because we are within this bank account class. So this is going to work. And just to show us here, we're just going to quickly create this. Now I won't be able to print it out to show us that it works, but if it doesn't get any errors upon compile, we'll know that it works. So go ahead and build, and we got some errors, but not for the reasons that I thought. So the reason we got some errors are because I didn't write std string here. So let's go ahead and save ourselves some time using std string. Alright, so let's try that again. Build and run. Yes, build and run. Build and run. There we go. So we were able to instantiate a new member of this bank account class. We haven't done anything with it yet, but just create that constructor. So now we need to define our other functions. So what we'll do here, we'll just go ahead and copy and paste these, put them in our CPP file here, and we just need to flesh all these out. So we just need to give a definition for each of these. And so that is what we will do in the next video. We'll start building all these functions and just make sure everything works as expected. For deeper learning on C++, visit us at makethingswithcpp.com and be sure to like and subscribe.